Live. Hello there, YouTubers, and welcome to another day with Pete Eastlick Podcast. It's your host, Ranger Matt. I got another blast from the past from God and Light. Joining me this week is Miss Sonia Satra. You remember her best as Lucy Cooper, and I'm thrilled to have her on with me today. And hi,
Hi, how are you? Good to see
good. How
you.
you? You too. I'm in the
Good.
I'm in the house with Miss Lucy Cooper Spalding here.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man. Hey, thank you for being part of my podcast and coming out to talk with me today.
Oh my goodness, my pleasure. It really is fun. It's a fun blast from the past for me as well.
And I told everybody else too, if you have any questions for me as we go, you're welcome to ask too.
Cool. Yeah, I might want to know why guiding light.
Well, I don't know if you have enough time in the day for me to answer that question, but I don't know. I mean, well, you guys came on at 3 o'clock, so it was after World Turns first, and then Guiding Light.
Right.
So back then, like I said, I was younger, so I watched that first, and then Guiding Light. So I just studied the characters, the history of the show, and I just got hooked. I don't know what it was, but it was, you know, like I tell the other actors who I've had on here, Guiding Light was kind of family orientated, where it was like, a group of y'all came on, y'all stayed. Shows like One Life and the other shows, they kind of changed cast like all the time. They didn't really stay together per se, and y'all was like a big family, and I fell in love with everybody on the show, and that's why I love Guiding Light.
I have to say
And
it felt that way being on the show too. It actually did feel like one big family. People
yeah,
were really pretty close, and I think people had stayed on for a lot of years. So you kind of lived through people's, getting married, having babies, some getting divorced, other situations, all kinds of things. So it was one big happy and at times dysfunctional family.
oh man, I got a blast from the past for you. Remember, it's you and Alan Michael and Brent Lawrence,
Oh my goodness, I do. I remember that. I remember that photo shoot.
and wow, and I have this here too.
Oh yeah, a wedding. Oh my god.
It's y'all wedding day.
That was quite a day, which was actually not even a day. It was 4 o'clock in the morning when we actually said our vows in Disney World in Florida.
Right. uh, so Sonia, let's go back a bit. Where are you from, and like what kind of hobbies did you have growing up?
Wow. So I grew up in a little place called Cedar Grove, New Jersey. It's kind of close to Montclair. It's North Jersey. I know I always joke. I'm from New
Right.
Jersey and I admit it. It has such a bad reputation, but it's a garden state. It's a nice place, except for a few areas. Um, and I grew up with my mom and my two sisters. My dad left when I was very young, so it was all girls. And my mom was from Norway, and so she was a big outdoors person. So at a very young age, we were always hiking or skiing or anything outside. She was a big one on. So I think those ice skating was some of my first hobbies per se. We all also played instruments. So I played the flute. And I really wasn't into acting. It wasn't, in fact, I didn't even have a television until I was 8 years old. And then it was super restricted until I was
Wow.
older. Yeah, I know. My husband always jokes. He's like, "You don't know anything about pop culture. How on earth did you ever become an actress?" But it's kind of true. I really didn't. Um, it just wasn't really a huge part of my upbringing, but I made my way there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are some
Um.
things. So it was very sporty family. We were always doing active things.
Okay. Um. So since you played the instrument, when are you releasing your solo album? I would love to go buy
My
your
loudest.
CDs, your music CDs.
Oh God. Yeah, that's one
Sure.
you're probably not gonna want to buy. No, I was a pretty decent flute player. I played a lot. I was like first chair all the way through high school. I played a little in college too. And then sadly it kind of fell off the wagon. Oops. Is that a little reverb?
Whoops.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yep, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
good. You have to grab some water. Yeah, I know. My jug.
Okay. Um. So when exactly did you know that acting was something you wanted to get into?
So I definitely, because it wasn't such a huge part of my upbringing. Like my mom was a professor, even though my dad wasn't really a part of me growing up,
Mhm.
he was also an academic. My oldest sister went to med school. My other sister was an engineer. So you can imagine when I was like, hey, I'm going to be an actress, I was the black sheep of the family. But the first sort of entry point
Uh.
was when I was playing tennis. I was in high school and I was playing tennis with my mom. And this local photographer came up to me and asked if I was interested in doing a hair ad. So, of course, I was 16, right? Like, how cool was that? I wasn't even being paid, but I think I was getting like some free shampoo out of it, but it was cool. So, I did a local hair ad for a hair salon in Montclair, New Jersey, and it was really fun. I had a great time, and then when I went to college, I thought, wow, maybe I could make some extra money. I was literally working in the dining hall, so I thought, compared to the working in the dining hall, maybe I could do some modeling for some extra money. And so I did what you shouldn't do, which is look in the back of the New York Times for ads for models. And you can imagine, that was many, many moons ago. The back of the New York Times looking for models was not really the place to go. So I hit pretty much every scam artist you possibly could hit up. But one of them I actually went to meet with, and it was like, yeah, give us $10,000, we'll
Whoop.
make you a star. And my mom was like, yeah, one, we don't have $10,000, and two, this doesn't sound
Right.
so. She had a friend of a friend who worked at a Spanish news station. That was about as closely connected we were to anything entertainment. And she connected me to an agency. And when I went there, they put me in touch with a children's modeling agency. And so I was there with my little book, my modeling portfolio, and they had me read a little script for some like Pizza Hut commercial. So it's just an audition. I didn't even know I was auditioning. But I was like, yeah, I can read, So I did it. And they were like, wow, that was really good. Would you be interested in doing some commercials? Sure.
Hmm.
And I had a beginner's luck. I booked the very first commercial I auditioned for. It was an A&P, it was a grocery store. And then I booked the third thing I auditioned for. It was a McDonald's. And then I had a string of like every fast food commercial you could imagine. I did them all: McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Burger Haven. Like I was the counter girl queen at that point. And so it was great. You know, I was in college, it was good money, but that was really when I thought maybe this is something I should think about. I was in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a communications major. I was toying with the idea of broadcasting, but I hated to write. And I was like, I'm never going to make it because I'm never going to be able to write quickly enough to do journalism and broadcasting. So I started to take some acting classes, and then this agency sent me out on my very first, this is a fun fact. My very first like legit audition was for Guiding Light. And I screen tested.
Really?
It was for the role of Mindy, and I obviously did not get it.
I didn't know that.
Barbara Crampton got it. And then a couple years later, after 7 more screen tests, I screen tested in 8 total times before I actually booked Guiding Light again. So for anyone out there that thinks, you know, it's an overnight success or like you fail once, trust me, you fail many, many times until you actually hit success. So 8 screen tests and I booked it.
I had no idea because, like, you know, I figured, you know, you probably auditioned for Lucy, but you auditioned for Mindy too. I mean, I didn't know that.
I mean, it was really lucky. I auditioned for Betty Ray. She was the casting director at the time. She was, you know, well-known casting director, and I didn't have a you know, outside of like 2 commercials. No, probably a few more at that point. But she was just like, you don't have any credits. You really haven't taken any acting classes. Like, why can you do this? And you know, at that point, it was just instinct. And then, you know, I studied a lot after that, and then I eventually landed the role. So, actually, when I booked,
so when you joined the show,
oh, sorry. I did the one for Mindy, and then one summer I went out to California. I went out to California, and that was really when I started. And I decided, you know what, if this is where I want to be, if this is what I want to do, this is where I should be. So I went back home, packed up my beat up Honda Accord, and I had about $500 to my name and drove across country. And then I landed in Hollywood. So.
Well, who knew? I mean, hey, it changed your life forever, and it changed us as fans' lives forever too. Because you really made an impact being on the show as Lucy.
Yeah, thank you. It was a really great role. And gosh, I mean, you couldn't ask for better people to work with. Rick Hurst and Justin Dees, like, in, you know, the core group of people, everybody. It was just so amazing. Marge Doucet, Ron Raines, the whole Cooper clan, and Frank Beatty as Brent. Brilliant. I mean, I was just one talented actor after another. It was a very talented group of people, and everybody really cared. You know, we really worked hard to try to do the best we could. So I was really blessed with that.
Yeah, I've had Ron Rings on here this year. I did like a phone interview with him, and Tina Sloan. I've talked to you twice. You didn't work with him, but you remember Morgan England, who played Dylan?
I did. I did work with him a little bit. I think he was on for about 4 or 6 months. Morgan England actually gave me one of the best pieces of advice. It was my 3rd day of working. I was so overwhelmed. And I remember this day as long as I live. I walked out of the studio and I was just like sitting on the corner. It was a sunny day and I was kind of bummed out because I felt like I hadn't really nailed the scene the way I wanted to. And I was, still trying to figure out how to memorize lines, hit marks, remember people's names, all the rest of it. And Morgan came up and he's like, "How you doing?" I was just like, I feel a little down right now. I feel like I didn't do as great as I'd wanted to do. And he's like, "You know what? You're going to have a chance to do that scene again. Don't worry about it." And it was so true because soaps have a slightly repetitive nature to it. And sure enough, like, I don't know, 6 days later, I did have the chance to do that scene again. And I did it, not the same one, but a variation of it. But it was he had just such a calming, sweet, like, reassuring kind of voice. Like, it's okay, like there's a lot to take in. This is so hard when you start. And each day is a tomorrow's rehearsal, and you're just going to get better and better, and trust that, and know that, as long as you come in doing your best, you're going to be okay. And I will never ever, I'm so grateful for that, because he was right. And it was just the best advice anybody could ever give somebody.
Right. Yeah, I had a real blast talking with him, and I just had Grant Alexander about 2 weeks ago, and Mark Doran, who was from AC Mallet. I had him on about a few weeks ago. Um, I actually I was in the process of reaching out to Margie Alexandra to interview her when I first started back in December, but she put away, unfortunately, so I didn't get a chance to get to her.
That's a shame. She's a brilliant woman, man.
Yeah,
I remember sitting in her New York apartment one night, and boy, the stories she had, because she really lived through the whole, like, old Hollywood studio system. She's a brilliant woman. She was a real class act.
yeah.
But
So when you joined the show, and I'm sorry.
no, that's it. Just giving it a may she rest in peace to Marge.
I I knew her well when I first watched soaps. She was on All My Children, and she later came back to Guy and Light. So I knew her first from AMC first, and remarkable. She played the heck out of Alexander's fault. So when you first came on in '93, how was the character Lucy described to you when you first came on?
Oh, she was a Southern girl. She was coming back for her trust fund money, and she was gonna get the heck out. That was all she was coming back for. So I had a Southern accent, and I was a streetwise. I was, Buzz's daughter, and we had a little falling out, but I was coming to get my money, and that was it, of course. And of course, then I stayed. But I think it was my first or second day. I was working with a radio host who was doing a guest appearance, and I got to dump a bucket of ice on him. It was pretty fun. Had a lot of sass in the beginning.
I've seen it. There's a guy named Mike who's uploaded like every episode of A Guy in Light, and he's uploaded your first few episodes on YouTube. I've seen that.
Oh, how fun! Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I should go back and watch it.
I thought it kind of strange.
What?
No. You still listen. You still look the same. You still just as beautiful as when you first joined then as you do now. Now, come on now. No,
you're sweet.
Be terrified.
That's sweet. Thank you.
That because because you're very welcome. I feel strange that like when you came on because when you came on, Beth Ellis had left the show, and then when this came back in '97, you left the show, so y'all didn't work together as much per se.
We didn't. My
You
very
was the new Cooper that was added to the Cooper family.
I was. The funny, I actually took over Beth's apartment. My first day of work was her last day of work. And she had some time left on her lease, and I took over her apartment. So I don't know her that well, but I feel a connection and a gratitude to her because she gave me my first apartment in New York, and it was a really nice one.
Man, y'all obviously was sisters, boom, but it's because when you joined, Jill Fern Pulse was producer, correct?
Yes, she was. Yeah. Jill was very good to me. She was on there.
Oh,
She also hired me on One Life to Live. So I liked working with Jill. I know people have very many thoughts about Jill, but I'm in gratitude and a fan. So for me, it worked out very well, obviously.
right. Um, so when they did the storyline where they paired Lucy with when they did the whole Alan Michael and Brooklyn '96. What was that whole storyline like for you? Because that was a real long story they did for you guys.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I heard that right. So the Brent story and Alan Michael.
Yeah, when they first did the Lucy and Brent storyline, and
Yeah.
then y'all thought he was dead, and then he came back as Marion Crane, and then that was a pretty long storyline
No,
for
it
you
was
guys.
a huge storyline because it started with the Lucy rape. It was a date rape storyline. So it was a pretty dramatic one. And yeah, really challenging storyline for me to do. I I really, took that one really seriously, and I did. Thankfully, I haven't been in that position, but I did a lot of research. I remember speaking to the head of police in terms of the one that's sort of in charge of the rape division. So I had an interview with her, and also did a lot of publicity around the rape hotline for anybody who'd experienced it, because I think one of my most powerful moments ever being on all of television was I got a note, a letter from a girl who said she was raped when Lucy was raped, and she got help when Lucy got help.
Oh,
Yeah, wow. That one hit hard and made you appreciate the power of television and how much, you really have to respect that platform and what people are getting from it. So, but what can I say? I mean, it was probably one of the most powerful but also rewarding moments of being in that story. But that storyline was huge. It took so many twists and turns, obviously, starting with that. And then it turned into the AIDS, you know, Marion changing my AIDS storyline test. And they had hired somebody who
right.
actually had AIDS. And at the time, it was many years ago, 90s. So it was still a really, big deal. And so talking to him was really enlightening and informative and just eye opening. And doing that, and then obviously the lighthouse and being kidnapped in that lighthouse forever. And then finally escaping. And having the wedding of my dreams with Alan Michaels. So it was an extensive storyline. Gosh, there's so much to say about all of it. I don't even know where to start. Where should I start? What would you like to know about?
Anything you care to share? Anything. This is your show, so hey, the floor is for you.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share about it, please.
Yeah, no, I mean it was a it was an exciting time. It was a fun time. It was a hard time because you really worked a lot of hours, and it was very emotional being in those stories. But Brent Frank Beatty was so brilliant in the role of Marion, and yeah, until he sort of had his little personal episode, and unfortunately said the main point of the storyline, he needed to be replaced, which was so sad because that was tough. But yeah, we all worked so well together, Rick, Frank, and
Right.
I, in midst all of the depth and the big part of it all. We all like would laugh, and just be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing this." you know? I remember one day Frank coming in after getting all decked out in
Yeah, that.
costume, and he was like, "I can't believe I get paid to do this."
Yeah, that was probably one of the best. Well, best. Well, I'm not saying that happened to Lucy, but what I'm saying is probably good storylines, and because guy like did that. They did storylines that dealt with real life situations, and
Yeah.
people related to that. And when that finally concluded in February '96, that did hit home. I know for fans it hit home because unfortunately, he killed Nadine. Gene Carroll was like, "Oh, Nadine, boom, got killed off." Unfortunately,
That was a big surprise. I think we were all
um,
shocked and sad because she was awesome too. She was fun and funny to work with. She was great, talented actress. But it did hit home, because at the time I was out and about doing a lot of publicity, and I was, a lot of people would come up and say that, this happened to me or that happened to me or that helped. And I also, at the time, personally, I had done a self-defense class, and it was really poignant. And I was with a lot of people who, in the real life class, who had experienced some form of either rape or trauma. And so that's why they were taking the class. And I thought it was so powerful that I asked the writers if we could write it into the storyline. And so they did, which was really cool. And we had them come in, and we did a variation of the real life class that I did take. So I think there was a lot of good that came out of that storyline. I think we really, to the writer's credit, they really wrote it well, and honored the truth, and tried to write in some solutions, the getting help, the sort of some form of self-defense and whatnot. And that was really important to me. So I was really glad that they had a lot of integrity around that.
so
Um, yeah.
when that concluded, you and Alan Michael had your big Universal Studios Disney wedding, which was it had balloon. Bubbles, and y'all was doing dancing the doo wops, Oldie but goodie songs, and Ron Raines, Marge, Toby Poser, who was Amanda, Rick Bauer, like all y'all went down there, and that was probably a big shoot. What was that experience like? Because y'all had an episode where all the fans came to the gate, and y'all opened the gate, and everybody came in.
That was such a crazy experience because, to my knowledge, it was one of the few times that soap operas actually went on set live. So it was a big deal. And yeah, I remember being there. I do remember when they opened the gates and everybody came in, and it was you know, they were instructed because they were filming it, so they had to sort of be extras, but at the same time they were fans, and so it was an interesting dynamic. But yeah, that was a fun, crazy shoot. What can I say about it? You know, it was such a big deal, and most of the filming we couldn't do until after the park closed. So we started filming at like 8 o'clock at night, and I remember being up on this, like they would lift me up on this conveyor thing all the way up to meet Alan Michael, and then I had that dress that actually lived in
Right.
the fashion cafe. It was because it had one of the longest trains on a wedding dress in soap opera history. So it was a pretty amazing dress. And as they lifted me,
Hmm.
this whole train came down. It was a pretty spectacular scene. And then yes, the bubbles, and then of course just the fun. But I think probably the some of the stuff that I remember the most was the lift, like that whole scene lifting up, and the limo ride in with Buzz, and the vows, the doing the vows at 4 a.m. It was freezing at 4 a.m. But it was by that point Rick and I had worked so much together, and so there was kind of it was just a nice connection. It was just a very sweet moment. But it was pretty impressive. It was exciting to be on set. It was exciting to have a live crowd around, and yeah, I wish we did more of the location shooting because that was really cool.
Well, what's interesting? Before God and Light ended in 2009, they actually did an episode where they went back to Universal Studios. And Beth Chamberlain, who played Beth, referenced that, saying that, "Hey, that's where Lucy. This is where Lucy and Alan Michael got married. We haven't been. She wasn't there, but she
Ah,
referenced that, and I thought that was cool on that."
oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that. I missed that. Yeah. Well, it sure was. It was there, and Epcot. I think it was the day after the wedding, or maybe it was the day before the wedding. We were filming at Epcot, and I do remember that the doo-wops, and we were running around the big globe and doing all sorts of stuff. When you film on set, especially something as big as a wedding, it was a lot more
Hmm.
condensed. So we worked a lot when we were there. So it wasn't like we were able to totally enjoy being at Disney World or anything, but it was a very cool experience to have the wedding there.
Right.
Yeah.
It was also a bomb dropper too, because the return of Grant Alexander. He brought Philip back, and everybody was like, "Oh, here comes Philip," and you was like, "Well, who's this?" Alan Michael, be kind of your brother, and they was feuding and all that.
That's right. That's right. That was the entrance of Philip again. Well, there was a grand entrance. I didn't work that much with Grant, unfortunately. I know he was a really popular character and he's a good guy. Like we talked a lot offset, but our characters rarely crossed paths. But what did he say? I'm curious
So,
what he said about
well,
that
I have to
wedding.
ask.
How was his perspective of that wedding? Because that was his first day back. What was it like for him to be there? Did he say?
No, we, no, we didn't get a chance to get into the show that year, but I'm actually gonna have him back sometime next month
Cool.
to talk a little bit more. But no, we didn't get a chance to talk about that one. I think Ron Ring said something. I didn't get a chance to talk about that one.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. I was wondering what it was like because I was so, it was such a big event, and really, I was pretty separate. I was really with Rick, and everybody else was like, they were part of the wedding party and the fun, where we were kind of separated. And because we were lifted up, we weren't even down on the ground with everybody. So I never really got other people's perspective what it was like to work in that. Probably more fun for them on the ground.
So that was the same year. Unfortunately, that was the same year that Rick Hurst, that Michael Dietz. What was that like working with Michael? Place Rick as Michael.
That's a tough one because Rick and I had a really close connection. We were great friends on set. We had a good chemistry. It was just so easy to work. We had so much history. We'd been through a lot of storyline. So Michael walked into a really, really tough role. Um, I I give him uber amounts of credit for doing as well as he did, because that was a tough time and a tough role to step into. And I think it was hard. And I'm not sure that the fans totally bought into it. He went on. I know he went on to General Hospital and did brilliantly. So I think it all kind of worked out for him in the end. But I think that was a particularly tricky
Mm-hmm.
role for him to come in on. But I mean, he's a great guy. We worked well together. It was easy enough. I mean, he was a very easy person to work with. Um, but we didn't quite have the history and perhaps the chemistry that Rick and I had. But with that said, he's
Right.
a great guy. And
Michael Dietz. Sorry.
no, what were you gonna say?
I'm sorry. I was going to say. So Michael Dietz, I knew. Well, after y'all both left the show, I knew him better for he went on to play a doctor on Port Charles, ABC. That's where I knew him most as.
I forgot about that. He did that too. And then
So
he
when
did
I
something
found
else.
out he was playing Alan Michael, I was surprised. And then, um, well, we having some technical difficulties here. Let me hold on. Let me. I'm gonna switch over here. Um, Hold on. Well, good morning. Let me see.
Say, I can hear you now. It's better now.
Okay. Let
That's good.
me see. Okay. My phone acting crazy. Let me just but yeah, Michael Deets playing Alan Michael. You know, I thought that was okay. I know that was tough to replace. Kind of like later on when they replaced they brought on an actor named Dennis Pilato to play Roger Thorpe after Michael
Yeah.
Lazo got sick. Same thing with that. That was really tough to replace. But I felt he was the good to play that part for that short time that he played it, and more like a couple. Even though y'all was playing a couple, you seemed like a couple, you and Rick, because y'all worked so well together.
Really did work well together. It's so funny because we were so close on set, and then at the end of the day, he'd go home to his family, and I hit it off, and so we didn't actually hang out that much off set. but on set we were really, really close. So it was a very, I don't know, it just was a very easy, comfortable relationship. And it worked. It was good casting. That worked. And sometimes it works better than others. And I think that's probably a little bit of what happened with Michael. It was just not the same, and it was a brutal, brutal role for him to step into at that point too, because we had just come through this gigantic storyline. So people had really, really bought into the whole thing, from my entry onto the show to the Brent, to the rape and the Brent Marion stuff, and then the wedding. And then for him to have to come in at that point, I'm not sure anybody could have really done that well. So I think he did a tremendous job given the circumstances, but the deck was not stacked in his favor.
Um, what are your memories of working with Frank Decopoulos and Justin Dees? Your brother and your father. I know we talked a bit about Justin earlier.
Oh my gosh, totally opposite, and both awesome. I mean, I know I just have nothing but positive things to say, because I really, like, everybody on that show was just so great. But Justin was uh, both hilarious and challenging and, like, unexpected. You absolutely never knew what you were going to get from Justin Dees. And I remember the first week of working, and I was so overwhelmed, and I had so many pages. That was another thing that Morgan said is, yeah, you could get like 50, 60 pages. And I remember thinking, 50, 60 pages of dialogue? How on earth do you do that? And he was like, don't worry, you'll figure it out. And sure enough, like on day 9, I had 53 pages. And I was working with Justin, and I was coming in from the diner, and I remember it was one of the final scenes of the day. I was fried, and I remember at the countdown, 3, 2, 1, and busted into the diner, and I was like, I have absolutely no idea what to say, and then somehow words just came out of my mouth, and apparently they were the right words, because the scene kept going. And then in the middle of the scene, Justin just like picked me up and threw me over his shoulder, and then he'd like put me in a headlock and like give me a little noogie, and it was just like, I was so thrown, but it was so funny and so fun, because he really kept things real,
Mm.
alive, and he was so freaking talented. He'd look at the page like one time, and then he'd have it, he'd know it. He was just like, he had this photographic memory. He was amazing. So it was always like the days when I worked with Justin, I always had to study a little extra hard, because I never knew what was coming at me. But some of my best scenes were with him, so that was really cool. And then Frank is like a big teddy bear. He's just like
Yeah.
the big brother you always wanted. He's just such a nice guy. He's so cool. He's so easygoing. He always would make you laugh or feel comfortable. And it was that was like it was just easy on days when you knew you were working with Frank. So that was fun.
Right.
Yeah, no. He's a good guy.
So were you ready to leave the show when you left in '97?
I mean, I actually asked to go. Sometimes I wonder whether that was a mistake. Um, at the time in my personal life, I had actually just, I know, right? I had just had a divorce, and I felt like I was single. I didn't have kids. I didn't own property. I didn't have anything tying me down. And I just felt like, if I'm ever going to play another character, this is probably the time to take my chance. And so, um, no, I wasn't totally ready because you're never ready to leave a really great job. But I felt like I had to sort
Right.
of challenge myself to step back out into the world and take a chance. So I did.
Yes, because after leaving, you went on to One Life to Live, where I understand you played a psycho nurse.
I
Her name was
did.
Barbara.
Psycho Nurse Barbara. And so I'm glad I got to have like such a totally opposite experience. Yeah, poor Nurse Barbara. She had some issues. But it was such a different
I heard.
yeah, she did. Like total opposite to Lucy, who was just, the kind of fun loving Spitfire girl. Um, this other one was Barbara was very complicated, had some deep wounds, definitely had some issues with relationships. But you know what? That ended up being a really interesting experience too, because I got the chance to work with Michael Zaslow. I was his nurse in my Psycho Nurse Barbara. I also became Michael's ALS nurse on the show.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and what was both interesting and difficult was my acting
I
teacher.
didn't know that
Yeah.
because I know that he yeah, I didn't know that because I know he when he started becoming sick, they for whatever reason they let him go from God and Light, and then they from the One Life and they wrote his illness of ALS into the story, and I thought that was one part when they did that, but I didn't know that y'all worked together again. He was a dynamic guy, Michael Saslow.
That's a good description. He was a dynamic guy. You know what? My interaction with Michael was always he was great with me. He was old school, been around forever, always gave me good advice. We didn't work a lot together, so I didn't have too much interaction with him on a, personal side, but I always respected and liked him on Guiding Light. Like it was always a good rapport. And so it was pretty cool to have that chance on One Life to Live. That was when I was nice to him on that as his nurse. Not so nice to some of the other characters on the show, but to him I was very nice. And I thought that was a brilliant move on Jill Farrenfeld. She was the one that brought that storyline, and I was like, kudos to her. That was big. And it also gave her a really great memory because they did a big ALS event with the Yankees. So I actually, as a ALS event, we all, as the One Life to Live cast, got to go play at Yankee Stadium on the field with the Yankees players. That was pretty awesome. And Michael sort of threw out the first ball,
Wow.
which was really neat. So that was a very special day. That was really, I was very happy, and that was neat to be part of such a special event. But yeah, so that was cool to play to sort of get to play, to go full circle and act with him in a totally different capacity, and then to play such a crazy character after playing a victim. Poor Lucy had so many bad things happen to her. It was kind of nice to be like the bad guy after that.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine who 'cause one of the things about Guy on Light that drew me was I started I was young watching episodes on videotape that still works well, by the way, and
Impressive.
um we were talking about Lucy, and he was talking and Barbara because he's more into, and I was into the CBS one because of my mother. Um, and I remember we was talking about that, and I was like, no, there's no comparison to Lucy and Barbara. Lucy is nicer. Barbara is one of them ladies who, you don't, if you don't treat her well, she might handcuff you. Because there was episode I saw a while ago. Um, I forget her name. I reached out to her to interview her. She played Cassie Carpenter on the show. Y'all both tangled together a little bit. Laura Kaufman, I
Oh
believe.
yeah. I was her nurse. I tried to kill her. Not my real character. I
Yes.
always say that's not typecasting, guys. I'm really much more like Lucy
Mm.
Cooper. But yes, she was
Yeah, but
very.
you know, at least it was cool on your part. You got to play something different, and that was yeah.
No, that was good. That was, but I had a really crazy role with
Yeah,
her. A weird
yeah.
storyline. It was a little. I was twisted by the time I got to play with Cassie.
um. So, did you ever have any inkling to want to go back to play Lucy on Guiding Light even later on before the show ended in 2009?
I did actually. At one point, I did meet with one of the executive producers, and it looked like there was a possibility that I could go back. And then he got fired. So the next person had said,
Oh,
yeah, so that didn't work out so well. Um, and the next person had different plans. It would have been fun to have gone back for the finale. I would have liked to have been there for that. But unfortunately, that I just wasn't invited back for that. So that would have given some really great closure because that was a historic show. I mean, it was
yes.
the longest running show in daytime
Yeah.
history, and it was a big part of my life, and it would have been nice to have done that.
Exactly, and you know, because it's interesting that when the Brent storyline ended, if you think about it, they never killed off Brent. He only was arrested. So you know how soap operas are when they bring back villains.
Yeah,
If they had brought you back and Alan Michael, they could have dug into that. You know, Brent could have had like a brother or a relative who knew him or something. You know, these.
they totally could have done that.
um,
I know it would
yeah.
have been interesting because it was a popular storyline. It was well written. Like they did a good job. So.
And it's something because when they brought back Alan Michael in 2005, and a whole new actor named Michael Dempsey played him, and they broke up both of y'all for whatever reason. And I was like, oh man, because y'all was a super couple, but you know it's a soap opera. They gonna do that. They broke y'all up. Frank and Elaine's daughter, who at one point he thought he was the father of the kid. And all they said about Lucy was Harley had got remarried to a man named Gus, and she saw y'all while honeymooning, and y'all had broken up. So I guess maybe there was inkling to bring you back, but then they did that storyline.
Maybe that was it because there definitely was a conversation or maybe even two about it. So, but I think actually they were thinking of at the time he was
So
thinking
what
bring
oh,
oh sorry he was going to bring me back to do something with a Josh storyline.
You're kidding.
No, I know. So maybe that was too much of a stretch. I'm not really sure, but they were trying to figure out something. And he was like, "Do you ever work with Josh?" And I didn't really, but there was enough of a stretch we could have probably made something work in there. So I think that was their thought process at the time.
Yeah.
That would have changed
I mean,
things,
it's
right?
God and Light has so much history. Yes, exactly.
I know.
Um, I mean, it's interesting because you remember Paul Rouse, who was producing when you left at that
Uh
time.
huh.
There was a rumor that he was working to bring the show back on the air.
Oh, now?
No, well, Paul Rouse has passed away. Like he passed a few years ago.
Oh gosh, I didn't know that. Oops. So clearly not now. I'm sorry, I did
Oh,
not know that. I probably should have known that, but I didn't.
I'm sorry. No,
No, I didn't know that.
yeah,
But
he.
yeah.
I think it was in 2011 or 12 because he had just produced The Young and the Restless. He went
Mm.
and did that. But Grant Alexander revealed that he back, but that um well, I know soap operas change all the time, but I've always said that it had the people show what it was in the first place. The shows would have kept it could have kept going, and I felt that if they had us back from that time when it was hot, it could have kept going. But I know shows change, and unfortunately, it was canceled in 2009. Unfortunately,
I know. There was
what was your reaction to that when that happened?
um ultimately surprised and sad. When I was on the show, there were rumors of it being canceled every year. And so I'd heard it's going to be canceled, it's going to be canceled, and then it didn't get canceled for so long that when I heard it again, I was like, they'll find a way to save it because they always do. And then when they didn't, I was I was kind of shocked and then just so sad because there were still a lot of people that I knew and really cared for that were on it and now weren't. And just because it was such a part of history and for it to just go away, it was, I don't know, kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think,
Well, one thing about watching, I think we talked about this briefly the other day. One thing that came from me watching and make I jokingly have mentioned that if I had back on the air, I would because I know so much about that show, and that's mainly why I wanted to do this documentary because of my love of the show. There was so many talented people, you and Grant and Tina and Frank. Um, it, it was a big part of the history, and so many television shows and circumstances in the world happened when y'all was on the air. The O.J. Simpson, remember that moment?
I always say that OJ Simpson is what destroyed soap operas because I felt like it was the real beginning of reality TV. I know that there was another reality show that had just started. It was like one of the first reality shows, but the OJ Simpson trials, I think, is what really shifted the industry. For one, it preempted us and a bunch of other soaps, so we changed times. And two, people were glued to that case. It was just so compelling and such a huge thing. And it became like reality became bigger than the storyline. And it never recovered from that.
Um, so I know you did maybe a few more acting jobs after leaving God in Light in One Life. You played Laura Rockefeller on I had the other day.
Man Who Built America.
What was that experience like working on that?
Oh,
It
that
was
was.
Laura Rocket.
I was Mrs.
Yes, that I was looking for.
Rockefeller's
Yes.
wife. Yeah, it was fun. It was a relatively small part, but it was fun to play a period piece. So it was a really cool costume, um, and that show did so well that it was kind of it was just neat to be part of that kind of that history. Actually, they're doing a Men Who Built America 2 because it's my husband's show, and I'm going to be in that too. I just don't know what I'm going to play yet, so it's coming. It'll air sometime in February, but it's going to be amazing. It's probably going to be even better than one, and one was really good. So something to look for. But I also got to play probably one of the biggest roles that I got to play since the soap opera was Gloria
Okay.
Steinem. I got to play Gloria Steinem in the history of Playboy, and that was pretty remarkable because she's such a huge icon in the women's movement. So both daunting and you know honoring to be able to play her in the 70s. That's kind of I played her back in the day, and that was really cool.
Um, I forgot to ask this earlier. How are you and your family holding up during this pandemic, this COVID that we got going on right now?
What a crazy time, right? Well, we've been moving around kind of a lot. We live in New York City, so when it hit badly, we have a house outside the city, but it was under construction. But we moved in anyway and just kind of made it livable. But then the mice decided that it was their house, not ours. So we had a bit of a mouse infestation. And when a mouse started crawling on my husband at night, he said, "No more, we're out of here." So we went to Tybee Island in Georgia, and then we went to Lido Key Island in Florida, and we just got back. So um, we've been moving, keeping isolated, but moving.
Wow.
So um,
Okay.
yeah, but I think we're off
Um.
to Ireland
Well,
to film Men Who Built America
that
2.
that was one of my questions.
Sorry, I think you got cut. I didn't hear what your question was.
I'm sorry. But I guess it's some internet connection we have in here. I'm sorry. I was saying, yeah, that was one of my questions I was going to ask. What were some of your current projects that you was working on before and well during this COVID that we're in right now?
Well, during the COVID, nothing because nothing is filming. I do have my own business now called Modicize. It's a integration of coaching and exercise. So it's really there to harness your brain power and help you become the very best person you want to be, and to really help you tap into your creativity and decision making and your greatness and go for your dreams. So I coach people, and I do this hybrid of coaching and exercise called Moticize, which actually I have a DVD will and download. And it won an award for a best new uh, fitness program, but it's really more of a mindset program than a fitness, but you will get in shape. So it's a little bit of both. So I've been working on that while during COVID, and now we're going to head to Ireland and film in Who Built America 2, and I'll continue to work on my business, and I'll film something in that.
Okay. Um. This might not be a question you thought I would ask, but I've asked everybody who I've had on here. What kind of music do you listen to? Like, what kind of genre of music do you like?
Oh, that's so funny. Oh gosh. Um, so I'm probably stuck in the 80s a little bit. So like really if I'm on my
Me
own and
too.
by myself, I'll be listening to some of that. But I got kids, so they keep me current. So I listen to some pop and a little hip hop, a little. I'm not a hardcore rap person, but occasionally my son will put that on. And back in the day, I did oh goodness, totally blanking on the name. A country. It was they were trying to bring back a show. Wow, I'm forgetting the name of it. Holy moly. Michael Landon was in it, and Michael Landon Jr. was
Um, are you talking about Little House or Highway to Heaven
neither. There was
or
a
Bonanza?
bonanza. So after Guiding Light, I did a banana, or maybe it was right before Guiding Light. Anyway, they tried to bring it back as a show. It didn't. It ended up as a couple of movie of the weeks, and I did one of them. But as part of that, because it was a little more country, we did a bunch of rodeos, and so I went to a lot of rodeos with the cast, and I kind of got into some country music at the time. So every once in a blue moon, I'll throw on some country too.
Well, you're not alone in that boat. I'm kind of like that too.
I
The
know you
only
got your
thing current I listen to is yes, yes. A little story for you. This is kind of my summer hat, and I was working at a lawn care company last year. Everybody wore this, but this was my summer hat, and it's one of them hats where it had this in the back. So everybody who would see me with this would say, "Where you get this hat from?" It was kind of my trend, I guess, because I was the only one who was rocking this.
It's
And
cool.
then last year, when I went back to church last year and was baptized in the name of Jesus. Um,
Very good.
that my pastor's sister, um, she started calling for whatever reason. She started calling me Ranger Matt, and that's why I use that in my podcast now.
That's awesome.
And at first, I wasn't into it because whenever she said Ranger, I kept thinking about Ranger Smith on Yogi Bear. But she kept calling me that, and then the whole church started calling me that, and now it just sticks.
That's hilarious. Well, it's a good look. I like it.
Thank you. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of that way too. The only thing current I listen to is really jazz and gospel, wisdom, worship kind of music.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of an '80s, '70s, early '90s kind of guy. I love and it might seem weird because I was born in '91, but at that time, Town Life advertised a lot of that music. It'd be on commercial all the time because cable wasn't like how it is today, so you would always see that stuff.
Right. No, it's true.
And yeah, I'm a huge Doobie Brothers fan, Michael McDonald and Hall and Oates,
Cool.
Rod Stewart. Um,
Rod Stewart. My first
you,
concert was Rod Stewart, and it was in Spain in a bull ring. How's that for my very first concert?
wow.
I know, it was
Did
pretty
you have
cool.
a Did you have one of these hats on since you was in the
I
bull ring?
No, I should have, but I didn't. I just wasn't as cool as you.
No, no, no. You're the cool one. You're the best one here. No.
Apparently, I wasn't.
Um. So, looking back at your career, you've done a lot of body of work, and I guess your main work that you'll be memorized the most of was Lucy on Guiding Light. How would you sum up your career? In general. Not that I'm calling you old because you are young, but summing up your work over.
How would I sum it up? Oof. Um,
Yeah, like what's the term?
the term that I would use. Oh wow, that's a tough question. What I
Would you like
um,
to ask the audience?
what's that? Yes, I would like to ask the audience.
I'm just
I mean, I feel like I would. Do I exactly? Do I get like one question? Can I ask the audience? What would
You
they?
are welcome to use your lifeline.
Please, can I?
You
Yes,
can phone a friend too.
I do. I mean, I probably feel like as always in life, I kind of see it as an adventure. I think Lucy was an adventure. My body of work has been an adventure, and even where I'm going is a bit of an adventure. So there's always this um, striving to continue growing in whichever direction it goes, but there's always a bit of an adventure aspect to it. So you never know where you're heading, but growing along the way.
There you go. I have one throwback for you. Right here. This is a throwback for you. And I'm curious, what comes to mind when you think of this throwback right here? This is something for you right here.
All right. Okay.
Um, oops. You're in this. Yep, you was right there.
Ah, that was so neat. Wow. That sort of brings back, so, makes me, yeah, a little like, oh, nostalgic is probably the word that comes to mind. But what's kind of interesting and I don't know, made me feel what is it, good? That's a very lame word, but the guy was the lighthouse, such a big part of my acting career, right? The guiding light. And I was coaching somebody the other day who was a big Guiding Light fan. And she had also worked with Liz, who's also a coach, and talked about how the guiding light has always been a part of her life in terms of it's been memorable as like it's the light in our lives. And so it was a light in my life back then, and I find that now my bigger sort of mission is to be a bit of a light or a guiding light in my coaching work or in some of what I do now, for as many people as possible. So there's something really powerful to me about the symbol of the guiding light. But watching that makes me feel really nostalgic.
Like I said earlier, you are a main guy in life guy. It was been like, I guess, 11. I was in my last year of high school when the show ended. So yeah, it's been like almost 11 years since the show ended. And but Guy in Light was a big part of history, and if it wasn't for you guys, I mean, the show began on radio, and then it took off until 2009. I mean, who knew? And all the characters, the Coopers, Spalding, the Lewises, and you when you came on, and so many. I had Liz Kiefer on here too. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady.
She is. She's a real spark. I love Liz.
Um, when was the last time you seen Your Wedding to Alan Michael? I seem to have found that as well.
I have
I'm
not seen
trying
that in
to.
a lot of years.
I think it's more appropriate here to say action.
Oh my God. Wow. Oh my God. That's so cool. That's amazing to see that. Wow. It's so weird, but very
It,
transforms you back to that
it's
moment.
it's ironic that yeah, I've seen that on YouTube, and I have it on DVD down here because I got a lot of '90s episodes and '80s on DVD. And now she doesn't have the wedding on as the two episodes that aired before the wedding when y'all first got to Orlando. So I remember I was trying really hard to find that tape, but but I got that on DVD. But that was literally lovely. I'm trying to say it right. That was lovely lit. That was shot right. The fireworks in the background, and all y'all, the guys at the bottom, and were you terrified because y'all got that?
Was I terrified because of what?
Because y'all was so high up when y'all shot that scene.
In the
You and Rick
beginning,
Hurst.
I was, yes, because we were really high up, and there wasn't a lot of protection around. But we were up there for so many hours. By the time that moment happened, I wasn't so scared anymore. No, I think at that moment, we genuinely were really happy. Like, oh my God, the wedding happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that would have worked for me because I got heights phobia, so I don't know if that would have for me. We would have had to have shot it on stage and made it look like we was shot up from my end. I don't know about that one.
It's so funny. I actually have a fear of heights too. But when I was on Guiding Light, I decided I was going to somehow overcome that and go skydiving. And so I walked into the set one day and I said, I'm going to go skydiving. Does anyone want to come with me? And the makeup artist said yes. And so did Justin Dees. And so the three of us went to a place in Princeton, New Jersey, and went skydiving. I can't say that totally cured my fear of heights, but it definitely made me get over a lot of it.
Oh man. Sonia, I've had a blast talking with you today. I'm sorry for the bad internet connection, but I've had a blast talking with you today. I always have a blast talking with you guys because on one end I'm interviewing y'all, but on one end the fan in me is coming. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to Lucy Cooper.
Well, it was super fun. You're really great. I'm glad you're doing this and keeping the history alive. So, thank you.
Absolutely, no problem. And I forgot to ask you. A fan reminded me of this the other day. You had some scenes. Y'all didn't work together a lot because she left afterwards. You worked a little bit with Julie Camilletti, Jocelyn Seagraft. Do you have any memories of working with her?
Oh wow, Jocelyn. Yeah. I didn't work with her too much. She was more with the Morgan story, I think, wasn't she? She worked a lot with him. Um,
Yeah.
you know what? I truthfully don't remember that many scenes with her, but I saw her when I moved to California afterwards because she was out there. So I saw her a few times when I was out there, which was kind of fun. She was one of the people I kept in touch with initially after leaving the show.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all had one scene y'all had that I liked. 'Cause they did the storyline where Julie was for Frank and trying to mess up his marriage to Elaine.
Oh,
That were
right.
you Lucy was trying to figure it out, but it was like you didn't know what was going on.
That's now a good one. Goodness, I forgot that. But now that you mention it, I do remember that. Yes. Yeah, she was a sly one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've lost touch with her, but it'd be kind of fun to connect with
yeah,
her
that was
again.
dynamic.
Yeah. Wow. Whole trip down
Um,
memory lane.
well, there's a there's a guy named Alan who's been doing a lot of interviews on YouTube. I kind of go interviews, and he has like maybe three or four come on, and he did one a few weeks ago where he had Jocelyn and Mark and Morgan and Bridget, Melissa Hayden. She was on they union with them.
Yes, I actually know. In fact, Rick and myself and possibly Frank are going to be doing one next Friday with him. It's like his guiding light reunion. With Frank are going to be like his guiding light reunion.
Yeah, yeah. First today because hospital, and since he's been off, he hasn't been on TV recently.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, um, some come on today. It was a blast from the past, and on my part again, to me, to you, thank you for portraying Lucy from '93 to '97, bringing it. Even Barbara. I mean, I don't know the episodes that well in One Life, but I've seen some of them. But you did well as Barbara
Thank
as
you.
well. Follow your guy in light.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was really fun being here today, and I'm glad you're doing the show. And I look forward to the documentary. You got to make that happen.
Ma'am, I'm in the beginning stages of it so far. I mean, I don't have a release date yet, and then because of COVID, I don't know like what's going to
I
happen with movies coming out. I was 50-50 about doing it at first because people are doing more documentaries about what's going on in the world, and I felt like, well, who wants to see a documentary about a soap opera? But Tina Sloan, and some others have told me, people would love to see this because it has history, and because I'm somebody that studied the show from beginning to end. I think it could happen. So, but I definitely will let you guys know. I'm working on the trailer, and hopefully, when COVID lifts up, I can promote this and take it to New York for the New York Film Festival and see what happens. It'll be my first documentary.
That's so great. Well, I applaud your efforts and sending you lots of positive film vibes. Any way I can help, please let me know.
Thank you. Thank you. I know we talked a lot, but sometime in August or September we could come back again and do it again. Maybe next time we'll have better connection. I'll try to do this on my phone or my other laptop by then. I'm working on getting another one, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about Lucy and One Life again.
That sounds great. Would love to do that. Give me a holler.
Okay.
All right.
Well, Sonia, you have a good night.
Thank you.
God bless you, and thank you again for coming on board.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much. Be safe out there. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.
You too. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to PE Slick Podcast and joining this interview, and Soaps Pass as well. Joining me in this week to talk about Lucy and Barbara. Again, sorry for the bad connection. I'm going to try to do this on my phone. I seem to have better luck on there doing the interviews. Join me on Monday. I have David Andrew McDonald coming on board. He played Edmund Winslow. I've had a lot of early Guiding Light stars come on board, so this is going to be one of my first stars that come on who came on later toward the end. And I'm going to work on getting Crystal Chappelle on board, and I'm in communication with Beth Chamberlain, who played Beth Raines as well, to bring them all on board to talk about their time on the show. And for those who don't know, yes, I was a big fan of Guiding Light for many years. I studied the show from beginning, middle to end, and the producers, the writers, and I haven't told a lot of people, but I am working on a documentary about the show. I've done some short films. I never did a documentary. And a friend of mine suggested I should do this because I know everything about the show, that I should try to do it. And I can't say when they'll be released because, I do work and I have internet problems, unfortunately, with my editing tool. But it is in the process of coming aboard. I'm going to have a trailer out sometime next month or September, and we'll go from there. So I thank you guys. Stay tuned. I will have Sonia and Scott Bryce and many others come back on later. I'm going to talk with Mark Doran to come back on as well. But thank you guys. Stay tuned, and God bless you guys. Until next time, you have a good night now. Goodbye. Oh, whoop, wait a minute.